I never thought I would live long enough to tell this story. Not because I didn't want to, but because there were nights where breathing felt like dragging a mountain through my chest. Nights where I lay beside the man I loved for 22 years and wondered whether I truly knew him at all. People think blessings come like sunlight, warm, gentle, obvious, but mine came like lightning, bright, sudden, and destructive. I inherited $300 million. Yes, you heard that right. 300 million. More money than I ever imagined my hands would touch. More than my father, a post office clerk who worked until his back bent like an old willow tree, could dream of. More than I ever believed fate thought I deserved. When the lawyer placed the folder in front of me, his tone calm, almost too calm, I felt my heartbeat in my gums. My palms were wet, my breath short, the room spinning like warm honey. Even now, I still remember the faint smell of old books in that office, the ticking of the wall clock, slow and cruel, as if time itself was waiting to see whether I would laugh, cry, or collapse. And I did none of those. I sat there, frozen, while the lawyer slid a pen toward me. His voice sounded like it came from underwater. Your uncle left everything to you. Buildings, stocks, cash, properties, all under your name, sole heir. You might think I screamed with joy. You might think I ran outside and bought champagne, or called everyone I loved with shaking, happy hands. But instead, I whispered only one thing. I need to go home. Home, where my husband was, where my life, my real life, waited. I remember gripping the steering wheel so tight, my fingers turned white on the drive back. The world outside was normal. People walking dogs, children skipping, someone watering flowers. But inside me, storms were forming. I wanted to share everything with him, to see his eyes widen, his arms open, his voice crack with disbelief. I imagined him holding me, spinning me around the kitchen, our laughter echoing off the walls. Maybe we'd travel. Maybe we'd finally fix that leaking bathroom door. Maybe, just maybe, money would make life softer, warmer, sweeter. But life is strange. Sometimes you run home with gold in your hands and walk into a house that is already on fire. Because when I opened the front door, before I could even take off my shoes, before I even had time to say his name, I heard a woman's voice in my bedroom, soft, laughing, comfortable, as if she belonged there. My breath stopped. At first, I thought I misheard. Maybe the TV was on. Maybe it was the neighbor. Maybe reality was playing tricks on me because my head was too full of money and hope. But then I heard his voice, my husband's voice, warm, low, intimate in a way I hadn't heard directed at me in months. "Don't worry," he whispered. "She won't be home for at least another hour." I still remember the way my keys fell from my hand, slow, metallic, echoing across the hallway like a gunshot. In that moment, the $300 million meant nothing. I didn't feel rich. I didn't feel powerful. I felt like a woman who'd been blind for years and suddenly, painfully, could see. The house was silent except for voices upstairs. Their laughter felt like needles under my fingernails. My legs moved on their own, up the stairs, each step heavier than the last. My heart wasn't racing. It was sinking. And you know what is worse than betrayal? It's realizing the signs were there all along. The late nights, the sudden need for privacy, the way he recoiled slightly when I reached for him in bed. I just never wanted to believe them. I reached our bedroom door. No, his bedroom door now. It was slightly open, as if inviting me to witness my own undoing. And when I pushed it open, that was the moment everything broke. But before I tell you what I saw, before I let you feel the floor collapse beneath my feet, I need to take you back to who I was before that day, so you will understand how deep the wound went, how wide it tore through me, how a love I thought was unshakable crumbled like old paper in my hands. Because a betrayal like that doesn't just happen. It grows, quietly, like mold in the dark, and I was blind to it, completely blind. I want you to understand something before we go further. I wasn't always this woman whose voice trembles when she speaks. I once had a life that felt ordinary, steady, predictable in the sweetest way. Or at least that's what I believed. My husband, Daniel, was my best friend. Or so I used to say proudly to anyone who'd listen. We met when I was 24, too young to understand what forever should feel like, too hungry for comfort to question the shadows that occasionally passed through his eyes. He was kind back then, quiet, thoughtful, the type of man who remembered the small details, how I liked my coffee weak with too much milk, how I hummed unconsciously when I was nervous, how rain always made me nostalgic instead of sad. He treated me like I was someone rare, like choosing me was the easiest decision he ever made. I remember our small rented apartment, with wallpaper peeling like old scabs, the heater that groaned at night like something was alive inside it. But it was ours, and love, or what I thought was love, made everything warm. In the early years, we would dance in the kitchen at midnight, barefoot, breathless, laughing at nothing. We dreamed of the future like two children drawing castles in the sky. Life was not perfect, no life is, but it was gentle. His mother, however, was another story. A woman carved from rules and cold glances, who believed no woman could ever be good enough for her son. She didn't say it, she didn't have to. The way she looked at our cheap furniture, my simple clothes, the meals I cooked, said everything. Still, I tried, for years, because loving someone means loving where they came from, or at least that was what I believed back then. Daniel worked at a construction firm. Long days, aching shoulders, dust in his hair. Sometimes I'd watch him sleep, hands rough from labor, and think, this is a good man. A man who comes home tired but loyal. A man who works hard for us. A man I trust. God, trust. How strange that a word can taste so sweet once and later burn like rust on the tongue. We never had children. Doctors said it might happen, it might not. We waited. We hoped. We swallowed disappointment like medicine. And though the silence of a childless home can echo louder than any argument, we survived it. Or I thought we did. We filled our lives with routine, habits stitched into familiarity. He brewed coffee every morning. I watered the plants. We watched the same news channel at 7 p.m. We argued about little things, bills, laundry, politics, and always made up before bed. 22 years of marriage, 22 years of believing I knew this man like the lines in my own palm. 22 years thinking love was enough. But maybe comfort is the greatest enemy of awareness. Maybe routine blinds more effectively than love ever could. Because I never questioned the small changes. When he came home later, when his phone never left his pocket, when he showered immediately after arriving, something he never used to do. I told myself, he's tired, he's stressed, marriage changes with time. I lied to myself because I didn't want to face a world where the man beside me might not choose me anymore. And then, the inheritance. My uncle was distant, a man who lived like a ghost on the other side of the country. We met twice in my adult life. He sent a Christmas card once with handwriting that shook like candlelight. I never expected anything, not money, not connection, not legacy. And yet, one letter, a single phone call, turned my world upside down. The estate was enormous. Buildings downtown, shares in companies I'd only ever read about, land, art collections, accounts that looked unreal, digits too large to comprehend. When the lawyer explained everything, my ears rang. My hands felt foreign, like they belonged to someone else, someone richer, stronger, untouchable. I wasn't raised with wealth. I was raised with scarcity, counting grocery expenses, reusing tea bags, saving for months to fix broken appliances. So holding that document, that proof that life had changed in a single breath, I felt like an imposter in my own skin. All I wanted, my first instinct, was to run home to Daniel, tell him everything, share the miracle. Because isn't that what marriage is? Sharing what we have, what we dream, what we fear. But fate has a strange way of revealing truth. The day I came home with millions in my name was the day I lost the one thing money could never buy back. I still see it clearly as if watching a film frame by frame. The front door creaked. My shoes pressed against the familiar rug. A scent, sweet, floral, hung in the air, foreign, intimate. Not my perfume. My heart should have warned me then. But hope is stubborn. The voices upstairs, the laughter, the softness. I move like someone walking toward a cliff with eyes open. Up the stairs, past the pictures of us smiling on vacations, past the bedroom door where we once planned a family. My hand trembled on the doorknob, not because I knew, but because some part of me already understood. I pushed the door, and what I saw, no, not yet. You need the full story to feel the weight of that moment. The way betrayal doesn't break, it shatters, slowly, sharply, irreversibly. The woman in our bedroom, her face, her body, her voice, would become the storm that swept through my life, leaving nothing standing. But before I open that door for you completely, you need to follow me to the moment where my life split in two, before knowing and after. Because once that door opened, I was never the same again. I stood there, one hand on the doorknob, the other trembling against my own ribs, as if holding my heart inside was the only thing keeping me upright. This was the moment right before everything unraveled. You know that feeling, when something inside you whispers, "Run," but your legs refuse to move? When your mind becomes a battlefield, half of you praying you're wrong, half of you preparing to die from the truth. That was me. I pushed the door open, just a few inches, enough to see silhouettes, two bodies entwined like they belonged to each other's skin, familiar yet wrong, intimate in a way that felt like a knife turning inside me. My husband's voice was soft, too soft, a softness he once reserved for me alone. "You smell like her," the woman laughed quietly. "Won't she suspect?" He answered with a chuckle, a sound that once warmed me, but now boiled my veins. "She never notices. She trusts me too much." Those words didn't stab, they disemboweled me. I stepped back, unable to breathe. Was this real? Was I awake? How could the man who used to kiss my forehead every night say such things about me? I should have burst in. I should have screamed. I should have thrown every memory off the balcony. But instead, I stood there, quiet, frozen, listening like a stranger in my own house. The woman shifted, her voice clearer now. When will you tell her? Or do you want to stay married for the money? Money. The word hit me like a blow. He laughed again. She has nothing. We need to be patient. A bitter irony, a twisted joke from the universe. I had $300 million in my bag downstairs, and the man upstairs believed I had nothing. I wish I could tell you I was strong then, that I stormed in, demanded answers, shattered the illusion with fury. But I didn't. I walked out quietly, my steps light, unnaturally light, like I was floating, like my body had disconnected to protect what was left of my dignity. I sat in the living room, keys still on the floor, and waited. Waited for them to come down. Waited to confront them. Waited to hear a lie sweet enough to believe. But what happened next was worse. 10 minutes later, she left. Hair messy from his hands, button misaligned, wearing the robe I bought him for our anniversary. He kissed her at the door. He kissed her in our home, where I was supposed to feel safe. I felt something inside me crack, a soundless, irreversible fracture. He turned, startled when he saw me sitting there. His eyes widened, not with guilt, but fear. Fear of exposure, fear of consequence. You're home early. His voice was thin, paper-like. He didn't rush to kneel beside me. He didn't grab my hands. He didn't cry or beg. He just stood there, as if waiting for me to either scream or collapse. Who is she? My voice came out hoarse, not angry, wounded. He swallowed. Silence stretched tight between us, heavy enough to crush bone. I expected a confession, or denial, or something human. Instead, does it matter? 3 words, no remorse, no hesitation. A knife turned inside a fresh wound. I should have hit him, thrown something, walked out and never looked back. But my mind, fragile and fractured, went somewhere else entirely, to the envelope in my purse, the inheritance papers, the money, the power I suddenly held, unknown to him. I looked up at him, calm, too calm. Maybe, I whispered, for once, it does. He blinked, confused, because he still thought I was the powerless one. None of us knew then that everything was about to shift, that this betrayal was only the beginning. Money, love, betrayal, they don't mix quietly, they explode. And this story was about to explode in ways none of us were prepared for. He stood across from me like a stranger wearing my husband's skin. 22 years of shared mornings and shared pillow creases. And suddenly, I couldn't recognize the man in front of me. Not by his eyes, not by his posture, not by his silence. Silence tells the truth more clearly than words ever could. I remember folding my hands together slowly, as if holding them would keep me from falling apart. My voice came out thin, almost gentle. Tell me, how long? He didn't look away. He didn't apologize. He didn't reach for me. 7 years, he said simply. 7 years. I felt my chest tighten, not from shock, but from the realization that my denial had been longer than his betrayal. 7 Christmases, 7 anniversaries, 7 birthdays where I kissed him goodnight, while he kept another woman's perfume beneath his nails. I should have screamed then, should have thrown something against the wall just to hear it break, because something inside me already had. But I stayed still, still as if movement might shatter me into dust. He walked past me then, not rushing, not ashamed, just casually stepping into the kitchen as though this conversation was no more than weather talk. He poured water into a glass. Ice clinked lightly. So ordinary, so cruel. A normal man would tremble. A guilty man would beg. But he stood there drinking like nothing was wrong. That was when suspicion began to curl inside me, vine-like, slow and poisonous. Was it really just love? Or something bigger? Something planned, calculated? Because an affair hidden for 7 years isn't a moment of weakness. It's architecture. And architects don't build without intention. He sat across from me, finally showing the first crack in composure. Not regret, but annoyance. "What now?" he asked. "Are you planning to ruin everything over one mistake?" One mistake. 7 years of deception, reduced to 2 careless syllables. I stared at him, the man I once trusted with my whole life, and realized I didn't know him at all. "Do you love her?" I asked. He didn't answer. That was answer enough. Something dark and cold washed through me then. Not hatred, but clarity. The kind you only feel when your world has already burned down. He leaned back, voice calm, almost strategic. "Listen, let's not make this bigger than it needs to be. We can work through this. We've built a life together. You need stability. I can still give you that." It should have been comforting. Instead, it terrified me. Because cheating is emotional, but calculated comfort is strategic. I realized then, he wasn't afraid of losing me. He was afraid of losing what came with me. The house, the routine, the security, the life I built. And suddenly, the envelope in my purse felt heavier, sharper, like a blade disguised as a blessing. He didn't know about the inheritance. Not yet. And for the first time since this nightmare began, I held something he didn't. Power. I stood up slowly, legs almost failing me. He watched, confused, maybe slightly irritated, but not scared, not even close. Because he still believed I was the fragile one. He didn't see how betrayal rewires a person, how pain strips away naivety like old paint, and beneath it, something stronger waits. "I need air," I whispered. He shrugged, didn't ask to come, didn't follow. And that hurt more than seeing him in bed with someone else. Because that silence meant he didn't fear losing me. Down the street was a park bench where we used to sit together in summers. I sat there alone now, hands clenched, breath shallow. The world felt wrong, too bright, too loud, too real. Birds sang, cars passed, children laughed in the distance, and I wanted to scream, "How is life still moving when mine has stopped?" But life never pauses for heartbreak. As I sat there, shaking, I opened the envelope again. $300 million, a number too large for my grief-shrunk world. I had planned to share it with him, to build a better life for us. But now I questioned everything. If he knew, would he ever leave me? Would he fight for love or only wealth? Was I a wife or an investment? The more I thought, the more the puzzle reassembled itself into a darker picture. The sudden gym membership, the new cologne, the increased confidence, the push for me to stop working last year. Had he been preparing to live without me, or preparing to benefit from me? My blood ran cold. Was this betrayal emotional or strategic? And then something inside me clicked, a quiet awakening, a shift. I would not confront him with tears, not yet, not until I knew everything. Because truth is not loud, truth is patient. Truth waits for the moment it can strike clean. I wiped my face, stood up, walked back home, not as a broken wife, but as a woman holding fire beneath her ribs. And when I opened the door, he was sitting there calmly, as if nothing had happened, as if I was the one who owed him an explanation. He looked up. "You're back." Yes, but not as the woman who left. Something in my voice changed. Even I could hear it. "We need to talk," I said quietly. And he smiled slightly, confident, assured, because he thought I was coming to forgive. But forgiveness was no longer on the table. Answers were. And I would get them, even if I had to burn the entire house to reveal them. I closed the door behind me gently, not slamming, not shaking, just letting it click into place. He glanced up from the sofa the way a man might look at a newspaper headline, mild interest, no urgency. If I had come home crying, pleading, begging, I know he would have felt stronger, in control. But I walked in with silence wrapped around me like armor. And silence scares guilty people more than screams ever could. He gestured toward the seat across from him. "Sit down. We should talk like adults." Like adults, as if I was unreasonable for wanting answers to 7 years of betrayal, as if his infidelity was a misunderstanding we could sip coffee over. I sat, back straight, hands folded neatly, not to look composed, but to stop them from trembling. My voice was steady, too steady. "Tell me everything," I whispered. He exhaled, long and slow, like someone preparing to recite a speech rehearsed many times. "Fine, if you want honesty, I'll give it." He leaned back, crossed his legs, and for a moment, I hated the way he looked so comfortable, as if the truth was something he could set down and pick up at will. He began. Her name was Elena. They met at the gym. It started harmless, he said. Conversations, coffee, connection, then something deeper. My voice cracked only once. "Why her?" He shrugged, as if choosing another woman over his wife was an errand he'd done unconsciously between grocery aisles. She understood me better. She made me feel young again. She didn't look at me like I was failing. Failing. The word hung sharp in the air. Had he felt unseen by me? Had I missed his loneliness while nursing my own? Pain can coexist with self-reflection. Sometimes that's the cruelest part. I swallowed hard, voice low. "So she replaced me?" He didn't hesitate. "In ways, yes." I inhaled sharply, air scraping my throat like broken glass, but the worst was still to come. He shifted forward, eyes colder now, calculating. "I didn't tell you because I didn't want to hurt you, and because our life is stable, financially, emotionally, structurally, financially, the word again, a thread, a red flag. Something felt wrong, too logical, too reasoned, not a confession, a negotiation. I leaned forward. Did you ever plan to leave me? He hesitated, just for a second, barely noticeable, but to a woman who has spent her life reading silence, it was deafening. No, he said, that wouldn't be practical. Practical. Marriage wasn't love anymore. It was utility. I felt something inside me go still, calm, focused, cold. And then the truth began to unravel like a pulled thread. He stood, walked to the drawer beneath the stairs, the one he thought I'd never open, and returned with a folder. He dropped it in front of me. Since we're being honest, it's better you know everything. Inside were documents, financial documents, insurance policies, property transfers, bank authorizations, all in his name. And mine? A faint shadow fading. My voice barely rose above a whisper. You were moving things out of my ownership. He didn't deny it. Piece by piece, for 7 years. Elena helped me understand that you were too trusting, too passive, too easy to outmaneuver. Outmaneuver. As if I were a business obstacle, not a wife. My fingertips grew numb as I flipped through page after page, my home, my savings, my security, slowly reassigned like numbers in someone else's game. He watched me read, expression calm, almost proud. This marriage works because I lead, you follow, and you're predictable. Predictable. He thought he knew me so well, thought betrayal had broken me so completely that I would sit quietly and accept whatever crumbs he offered. He didn't know about the inheritance, not yet. I closed the folder slowly, the sound echoing like a sealed coffin. I looked up, met his eyes, and for the first time I saw him, not as the man I married, but as a man who could burn the world to keep himself warm. I felt strangely calm. Daniel, I said softly, what if I told you our financial situation has changed? His posture shifted slightly, almost invisible, but I felt it. What do you mean? I reached into my purse, pulled out the thick envelope I once imagined we would open together, placed it on the table between us. He stared, silent. Then he laughed, low and disbelieving. What is that? Divorce papers? No, I replied. Legacy. He stopped laughing. I slid the documents toward him. His eyes dropped to the first page, and everything inside him changed. Breathing quickened, hands twitched, pupils widened like darkness expanding. He read the number once, twice, 3 times. $300 million. A silence fell so heavy I could hear his pulse. He looked up slowly, hungry, frightened, electrified. When? How? Why didn't you tell me? And with that question, the truth exploded inside my chest like a detonation. He wasn't shocked I inherited a fortune. He was shocked he didn't know sooner. Shocked he hadn't planned for it, taken it, redirected it like everything else. A marriage built on love might have cracked. A marriage built on betrayal erupted. He reached for my hand. For a moment, I let him, because I wanted to hear his voice when he realized he had lost control. We can start over, he whispered urgently. We can fix this, together. Think of what we could do with that money. Not what I could do, not how this could heal us, not an apology. Only we in relation to money. Only partnership as access. Only love as currency. I slowly pulled my hand from his grip. Daniel, I said quietly, you've been planning without me for 7 years. And his face changed, cold, strategic, unmasked entirely. Then you should be careful, he replied softly. Power changes everything. That was when I knew. My husband wasn't just unfaithful, he was dangerous. And the inheritance didn't save me. It marked me, like blood in the water. Power changes everything. I remember sitting there, staring at the stack of papers between us, his betrayal on one side, my inheritance on the other. 2 lives, 2 truths, and me trapped in the middle of both. I felt like a woman standing in a burning house holding a bucket of diamonds, rich in a way that couldn't stop the flames from eating my life alive. He leaned back, studied me with new eyes, calculating as if reassessing his strategy. We can move past this, he said calmly. We just need to be smart. Smart. A word he once used lovingly when I solved problems in our life. Now it sounded like a command. I trusted you, I whispered, when I had nothing, when I thought love was enough. He exhaled, not regret, not sorrow, but annoyance at my sentiment. Love doesn't build a future, stability does. I felt something cold spread from my spine to my fingertips. Stability, I repeated. And what was I to you? Stability for her life? His jaw tensed, a crack in the stone. For the first time, I saw guilt flicker, quick, fragile, gone too soon. He rubbed his temples, voice lowering. Listen, Elena is temporary. You and I, we're permanent. You're my anchor. She's relief. Relief. The word echoed like a slap. In that moment, the pain wasn't loud. It was quiet. A quiet so deep, it felt like drowning without water, screaming with no voice. I looked him straight in the eyes. You replaced me emotionally, I said softly. You erased me financially. And now you want to own my future too? He didn't flinch. I want security for us. But the us he spoke of was gone. Dead the moment he locked lips with another woman in my home. Ashes the moment he moved our assets like chess pieces without me. My voice shook, not with weakness, but with clarity sharpening like glass. And if I walk away? The question landed like lightning. He froze. Not because he feared losing me, but because he feared losing the $300 million tied to my name. His tone changed, urgent, tremoring beneath forced calm. You wouldn't survive without me. You're emotional, impulsive, vulnerable. People will take advantage of you. I've kept you protected. Protected. The illusion shattered completely. He wasn't a husband. He was a warden, and I had mistaken my cage for comfort. I stood, slowly, deliberately. The room felt heavy, like air thickened around us. He rose too, instinctive, as if afraid I might disappear with everything he thought belonged to him. We stood face to face, one breath apart, 2 storms colliding. I'm not small, I said quietly. I'm not weak, and I'm not yours to manage. His eyes darkened, fear and greed tangling like serpents behind them. If you leave, he warned, don't expect kindness from me when this gets ugly. And I felt a tremor in my chest, Not fear of him, but fear of how far betrayal could twist someone once loved. Was this the man I once danced with barefoot in the kitchen? The man who held me through miscarried dreams? The man who promised forever with steady hands? Or had that version of him never existed at all? I sat again, because my knees weakened under the weight of every memory. He remained standing, looming, as if height meant dominance. And I broke. Not loudly, not violently, but in a way soft enough to cut deeper than screaming ever could. I gave you my best years, I whispered, my body, my loyalty, my silence, and you filled the quiet with someone else's laugh. He looked away. For the first time, he couldn't hold my gaze. And that was when I asked the question that chilled even him. Did you ever love me, or just what I provided? The room held its breath. He opened his mouth, closed it. A moment of truth, raw, naked, unfiltered, flickered across his face. Then, what difference does it make now? And that answer, that one devastating sentence, became the final blow. Because it meant love was never the foundation. Convenience was. I felt tears roll down, hot and unstoppable, not from weakness, but from mourning the version of my life that died that day. He stepped closer, voice lower, falsely gentle. We can still build something good. With the inheritance we could... I cut him off, voice solemn, steady as steel. You don't get to weave your future from the threads of my pain. His face hardened. Then what do you want? For a moment I didn't know. Part of me wanted revenge. Part of me wanted escape. Part of me wanted to rewind time and unknow everything I knew now. But the deepest part, the wounded, awakening part, wanted something simpler. To reclaim myself. Not as his wife, not as his possession, but as a woman with her own name, her own wealth, her own spine. But to get there, a decision had to be made. One final confrontation, one irreversible step. Night came like a curtain falling over a ruined stage. The house was quiet, too quiet. The kind of quiet that follows a storm, but arrives before the rebuilding begins. Daniel slept in the guest room. Voluntarily? No. You don't share a bed with someone once you've seen the ghost of who they really are. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling. A woman reborn through fire, numb yet alive in all the wrong places. It's strange how pain clarifies everything. I thought about walking away quietly, leaving the millions, the memories, all of it, just to free myself. But silence felt too much like surrender, and I had surrendered enough. I got out of bed, the floor cold beneath my feet, walked to the desk where his folder of financial transfers still lay open, the proof of what I meant to him. Not love, not partnership, asset. My hands were steady, steadier than they had any right to be. I gathered documents, every one of them, and then I opened my laptop. My fingers typed like they knew something I didn't yet understand. Emails, bank reversals, legal contacts, inheritance authorization, asset protection, personal transfer rights. I didn't yell. I didn't threaten. I acted. Because grief is loud, but clarity is silent. By sunrise, every last dollar, every property tied to my uncle's legacy was locked under my name alone, protected, untouchable. The next morning, he came downstairs, hair messy, shirt wrinkled, that same confident breath he always carried, until he saw the papers spread across the table, frozen, stiff, still. "What did you do?" he demanded. I didn't answer immediately. I poured myself tea, slowly, deliberately, letting the steam rise like a quiet declaration of independence. Then I sat, not across from him this time, but at the head of the table. "For 7 years," I said softly, "you reduced me to nothing." His jaw flexed, eyes narrowing. "You think you're strong because you have money now?" I met his gaze, steady, unblinking, unbroken. "No," I replied. "I'm strong because you no longer define me." He stepped closer, anger like a shadow around him. "You're throwing away 22 years. I felt something inside me rise, the version of me he never expected to meet. "No, Daniel," I whispered. "You threw those years away, one lie at a time." Silence, heavy, pain-shaped, final. He realized then I wasn't bargaining. I wasn't negotiating. I wasn't grieving the loss of our marriage anymore. I was burying it. He tried one last strategy, voice softening like a man reaching for a closing door. "We can fix this, if you want to." I closed my eyes, and for a moment, I remembered the softness of the man I married, the warmth of his hand around mine, the dreams we once whispered under cheap bedding. But when I opened my eyes, those memories no longer held power. "Daniel," my voice broke, beautifully, painfully honest. "I wanted a partner. You wanted ownership." He looked away, not in shame, but defeat. Then I stood, took my purse, my documents, my future, and walked to the door. Each step felt like reclaiming parts of myself scattered across decades. Strength isn't loud. Sometimes it's the soft click of a door behind you and no footsteps following. Just as I turned the doorknob, he spoke one last time, voice small, stripped, undone. "Who are you without me?" I didn't turn around, but I answered, with the truth I earned through fire. "I am everything you never believed I could be." And then I left, not shaking, not defeated, not broken, reborn. I never expected $300 million to teach me about love. I never thought fortune would arrive hand in hand with devastation. But maybe pain is a teacher wealth could never replace. I learned that trust without awareness is surrender, that love without respect is captivity, that money doesn't change people, it reveals them. My husband betrayed me long before that woman, long before the papers, long before the inheritance. His betrayal didn't begin in a bed, but in his mind, the moment he saw me as less. And maybe I let him. Maybe comfort lulled me into blindness. Maybe routine taught me how to shrink quietly. But the fire woke me. I left with nothing familiar, no marriage, no routine, no illusion of forever. But I left with something far greater, myself. And if I could speak to the woman I once was, the woman who cried silently into her pillow, thinking love was strongest when endured, I would hold her face gently and say, "Strength is not staying. Strength is knowing when to walk away." Today, I don't measure my worth by who loves me, but by how deeply I love myself. And maybe that's the real inheritance I received. Not the money, not the wealth, but the awakening. Thank you for listening to my story. If one day your heart breaks like mine did, remember, you are strong enough to start again.